Medicare doesn't cover loneliness, and a paid-off house doesn't guarantee peace. Your Social Security deposit can hit on time. Your 401k can still be sitting there, and you can still feel restless, invisible, and ashamed in the grocery aisle. Retirement isn't a reward. It's a test, and nobody warned me it would feel like one. Part 1. Retirement isn't a reward. It's a test. Nobody warned me retirement would feel like a test. Not a vacation, not a victory lap, not a gold watch moment, a test. Because when the job disappears, the worry doesn't automatically leave with it. You spend decades thinking the reward is time. Then you get the time, and you find out time isn't the prize. Time is the empty room where your mind gets loud. The paycheck is gone, the schedule is gone, and all the little fears you kept busy for 40 years finally get a microphone. Here's what an unstructured day looks like for a lot of people. And I'm not judging you because I've lived it. You sit at the kitchen table longer than you need to. The TV is on because silence feels too honest. You scroll headlines like it's a job. And your stomach tightens like you just got called into the boss's office. Then you do errands that don't really need doing. Because errands at least make you feel like a person with a mission. You drive 6 miles to the store and spend half the trip thinking about gas. Prices. You stand in the grocery aisle and do that old math in your head: if I buy this, what do I give up? You look at the total like it's a verdict. I've got a friend, Robert, 68, out in Ohio. He's not broke. He's not living under a bridge. He gets his Social Security check. He's got a little 401k left. And the house is paid off. And still, he told me, I don't feel safe. That sentence should scare you more than any market headline. Because it's what retirement does when it turns into a test. The test isn't just money. It's 3 losses that hit you in the gut at the same time. And most people don't even realize it's happening. You lose structure. You lose role. And if you're not careful, you lose self-respect. Structure is the invisible scaffolding that kept you upright. The alarm, the shift, the commute, the lunch break, the Friday paycheck rhythm. When it's gone, a day can stretch so long it feels like punishment. You don't know where to put your energy, so it leaks out into worry, into distractions, into I'll start tomorrow. Role is worse. For years, people needed you. Coworkers called you. Customers depended on you. Your family knew what you did and why you mattered. Then one day you're home, and nobody needs you at 8:00 a.m. That doesn't just change your schedule. It changes your identity. A lot of seniors don't say I'm lonely. They say, I don't want to bother anyone. And that's the same pain in a nicer suit. And then there's self-respect, the quiet one. When you don't have a role, you start making little compromises. You stop shaving some days, not because you don't care, but because nobody's going to see you anyway. You put off fixing something in the house because you don't want to spend the money, and the delay makes you feel smaller. You avoid people because you're embarrassed. You don't have much to talk about anymore. That's how the test works. It doesn't hit you with one big punch. It wears you down with 1,000 small ones. Let me give you my own mistake, because I'm not going to sit here and act like I figured this out early. I used to think a paid-off house meant I'd feel safe. That was the lie I believed. I told myself, no mortgage, I'm good. Like the bank was the only thing that could threaten my peace. Then I lost something I didn't expect to lose my footing. I'd wake up tired, even after 8 hours in bed, because my mind was running. All night. I'd look at a pharmacy receipt, $120 for prescriptions, even with Medicare, and I'd feel this heat of shame, like I'd failed at the one job I had left. Don't be a burden. I'd hesitate in the grocery aisle. I'd skip the diner on Main Street because I didn't want to spend $18 on coffee and breakfast, and then I'd sit at home and feel the loneliness I just paid for. Now I know the truth. Peace is built, not granted. Retirement doesn't hand you calm like a certificate. Retirement tests whether you can build a new structure when the old one is Gone, whether you can give yourself a role when no one assigns it to you, and whether you can keep your self-respect even when your world gets smaller. This is why I'm so hard on the fantasy version of retirement. The brochures show smiling couples on a beach. Real retirement looks like property taxes you didn't see coming. It looks like waiting rooms and Medicare paperwork. It looks like a car repair that eats a month. It looks like adult kids who love you but are busy, and grandkids with schedules you don't control. And if you're sitting there thinking, "Why am I not happier?" I want you to hear this clearly. You're not broken. You're just in the test. Here's the turning point, and it's where this whole video is going. You don't pass this test by getting more motivated. You pass it by building anchors, small, repeatable habits that return control. Anchors that quiet your head, give your day shape, and keep you connected to the world without spending money you don't have. We're going to start simple, because simple is what works when you're tired. I'm not asking you to reinvent your life. I'm asking you to stop running from the noise inside your head long enough to name it, because you cannot steer what you refuse to look at. Do this 2-minute test tonight, and do it on paper, not on your phone. Write down the top 3 noises inside that keep grabbing you by the throat. Money, health, loneliness, regret, whatever it is. Write it plainly. Don't fix them tonight, just name them. If you can name it, you can plan for it, and that's how you stop the spin. And here's the question I want sitting in your mind as we move into the next part. Are you slowing down on purpose, or are you shrinking because you're scared? Because those two things look the same from the outside, but they lead to very different lives. Part 2. Slow living or shrinking away. The difference is self-respect. Slow living and shrinking away look identical from the outside. Inside, they're opposites. One is a choice that steadies you. The other is fear that quietly erases you. I'm going to say something uncomfortable, because it matters. A lot of people my age call it simple living, but what they mean is, I'm trying not to get hurt. Hurt by money, hurt by awkwardness, hurt by questions they don't want to answer. And if that's you, I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to keep you from disappearing. The cover stories sound responsible, even noble. I'm fine. It's too far. Gas is expensive. I don't want to bother anyone. I'm saving money. I've said every one of those sentences. Some of them were true. Some of them were a mask, because here's what we don't like to admit out loud. On a fixed income, a small outing can feel like a risk. A $5 coffee turns into $18 when you add a pastry and a tip. And suddenly you're thinking, that's a prescription copay. A 12-mile drive doesn't just cost gas, it costs energy. And when your Social Security check already got spoken for Medicare premiums, property taxes, utilities, your brain starts treating every social invite like a threat. But money isn't the whole story. There's also pride. There's the fear of looking weak. There's the fear somebody will ask, "So how have you been?" and you won't have a clean answer. There's the fear you'll sound lonely, and they'll pity you, so you cancel. You delay, you say next time, and then next time doesn't come. Let me tell you about Linda. She's 72 down in Florida, in one of those neighborhoods where everyone waves and nobody really knows each other. Linda isn't rude. She's not antisocial. She just keeps pulling back, one little decision at a time. A friend invites her for coffee. Linda says, "I'm budgeting." Someone asks her to come to a community center event. Linda says, "I'm tired." Her church has a potluck. Linda says, "I don't want to bring anything." And if you ask her, she'll tell you she's living simply. But what she's really doing is avoiding a moment where she might feel embarrassed or exposed or left behind. That is shrinking away. It's not dramatic, it's practical. It's the slow closing of doors until your world is the size of your living room and your worries are the loudest voice in it. Now let me own my part. I used to tell myself I was being disciplined. That was the lie. I thought self-respect meant I didn't need anybody, and I shouldn't spend money on non-essentials. I told myself staying home was maturity. Then the pain showed up, and it wasn't in my bank account. It was in my mood. I got lonely and irritable. I started resenting people for not calling, while I was sitting there refusing to reach out. I kept my wallet tight, but I let my life get smaller. That's the part nobody warns you about when you cut everything that costs. Money. You also cut the things that keep you human. Now I know the truth. Real self-respect isn't isolation. Real self-respect is choosing your pace without hiding. It's being careful with money without punishing yourself. It's admitting, I still need connection, without begging for it. So here's a simple diagnostic. Because you don't need a personality transplant. You need a clear way to tell what you're doing. There's proactive slow and there's avoidant slow. Proactive slow is when you choose your pace on purpose. You decide you're going to the library program instead of the loud restaurant, because you actually prefer it. You meet a friend at the diner on Main Street for a plain breakfast, because you want a real conversation and you can afford it this week. You say no to a late-night drive because you don't drive well at night. And you say yes to a morning walk because it fits your body. You're not hiding. You're steering. Avoidant slow is when the no comes from fear. You don't go because you don't want anyone to see you counting dollars. You don't go because you're scared the conversation will remind you you're older or alone or not as sharp as you used to be. You tell yourself the trip is too far. But you drive that same 12 miles to run an errand you didn't even need. You're not choosing peace. You're choosing not to be seen. And here's the part that matters. If you're shrinking away, the solution is not be more social. That's vague and it's useless. The solution is one clean move that protects your dignity and respects reality. I call it the rule of 1 yes. 1 yes per week, not 5. Not a full calendar. One low-cost, low-pressure yes that keeps you connected to the world and keeps you from becoming invisible in your own life. It can be simple. Go to a free library event, even if you sit in the back and leave early. Meet one person for coffee at the diner. And set a cap before you go. I'm spending $15, that's it. Show up at the church potluck and bring something cheap and easy. Or even just show up and help clean up. Because presence is worth more than a casserole. Join a walking group that meets close to home, so it doesn't turn into a 25-mile round trip and a reason to quit. The point is not to impress anyone. The point is to prove to yourself, once a week, I still belong out here. Because when you stop belonging, you start drifting. And drifting always looks like I'm fine until it doesn't. If you're thinking, but what if I feel awkward? You probably will. That's not a sign you shouldn't go. That's a sign you're human and you've been out of practice. Awkward doesn't kill you. Isolation does. So try this small pivot. Before you say no to something, pause for 5 seconds and ask yourself one question. Am I avoiding this because it doesn't matter? Or because I'm ashamed? If it truly doesn't matter, fine. Stay home and enjoy your quiet on purpose. But if the answer is shame, shame about money, shame about aging, shame about not having a neat life story right now, then you don't need a big speech. You need one yes. And I'm going to tell you why this connects to the next chapter. Because it's not just about your calendar. Avoidance is fueled by mental noise. A noisy mind will talk you out of every healthy choice. And it will keep you up at night running the same scary math. If you want to choose slow living on purpose, you have to quiet the spin in your head, because that spin is what keeps pushing you back into hiding. Part 3. Clearing the mental noise. 3. Ways to sleep better without a miracle. If you're up at 2 a.m., it's not because you're broken. It's because your brain never got an off switch. Retirement didn't turn your worries off. It just gave them more room to echo. I used to go to bed tired and wake up tired. Because my head was still at work. Not office work. Life work. The kind where you keep running numbers in the dark. Like the ceiling is a calculator and your heart is the one paying the bill. This is what that spiral looks like for a lot of seniors. Your Social Security check hit the account, and within a day it's already spoken for. Medicare premiums, utilities, property taxes, car insurance, prescriptions. Then you get one surprise $600 for a car repair, $120 at the pharmacy, even with coverage. A higher grocery total because prices climbed again and your brain files it. Under danger. And once your brain files something as danger, it does not let you sleep. It runs the audit. It asks, what if the roof leaks next? What if my knee gets worse? What if I outlive my 401k? Then you feel one random ache in your chest or your side, and your mind takes that little spark and throws gasoline on it. That's not weakness. That's the nervous system doing what it thinks it's supposed to do. Night is when the brain audits your life. During the day, you can distract yourself. You can keep moving, keep busy, keep the TV on. At night, when the house gets quiet, the brain starts pulling out receipts, money receipts, health receipts, regret receipts. And retirement makes it louder because there's less structure to wear you out. In a healthy way. Here's the mistake I made, and I want you to hear it because it's common. I used to think I could think my way out of worry. That was the lie. I'd lie there trying to solve the entire future in one night, like if I just worried hard enough, I could prevent the bad thing from happening. Then the pain hit. I'd fall asleep to cable news because the noise felt comforting, and I'd wake up 2 hours later with my heart racing. I kept my phone on the nightstand, and when I couldn't sleep, I'd scroll headlines like it was research. All I was really doing was feeding my fear right before bed, then wondering why my body wouldn't calm down. Now I know the truth. You can't erase worry, but you can contain it. Your brain relaxes when it sees a next step. Your nervous system settles when it knows the day has borders. That's what we're going to build cheap. Simple guardrails that work even when you're tired. I'm going to give you 3 tools, not 3 miracles, not 3 products. 3 off-ramps. You can try one tonight, or all 3. But do not turn this into another project. Keep it simple, because simple is what sticks. The first one is what I call the worry parking lot. This is not journaling. This is not processing your feelings. This is telling your brain, I hear you, and I'm putting this somewhere that is not my pillow. Here's how you do it. Put 1 sheet of paper on your kitchen counter with a pen. Every night before bed, write the worry in 1 sentence. Then write 1 tiny next step you can take tomorrow. Not a life plan, not a 5-step program, 1 step. It might look like this prescription costs are climbing. Next step, call the pharmacy and ask about the generic or Medicare plan is confusing me. Next step, set a reminder to check the Medicare portal at 10:00 a.m. or property tax bill is due. Next step, call the county office and ask about the payment plan. You're not solving everything. You're building a bridge from fear to action. Your brain hates open loops. It will keep you awake until it feels like something is handled. When it sees a next step on paper, it stops treating the worry like an emergency and starts treating it like a task. That shift is worth more than any lavender candle. The second tool is the news window. 1 window a day, 15 minutes, 1 time, and never after dinner. If you feed your nervous system at night, it will stay awake. Because it thinks you're in danger. Let me be blunt. The news is designed to keep you watching. It doesn't care about your sleep. It doesn't care that you have a cardiology appointment next week, or that you're trying to keep your blood pressure down, or that you need to drive 6 miles in the morning and be sharp. It cares about your attention, so you pick a time, like 11:30 a.m. You check the headlines once. If you want, you read 1 article, then you stop. You do not carry the world into bed with you. If you need something in the background, put on local radio during the day, or an old ball game, or something that doesn't punch your nervous system in the throat. The third tool is the device-free corner. Not your whole life, Not quit technology, just one spot that your brain learns to associate with calm. For most people, the best spot is the bed. For some people, it's the table. Pick one. My rule is simple. The bed is for sleep and rest, not for doom scrolling and panic math. If you want to check your bank app, do it at the table. If you want to watch something, do it in the living room. Because if you train your bed to be the place where you worry, then you're going to lie down and your brain is going to hit worry mode. Automatically. Seniors don't need perfection. We need one protected space. One border. One small line that tells the body, it's safe to shut down now. You can't control inflation, but you can control where your phone sleeps. Now I'm going to give you a practice for the next 7 days. And it's so simple you might be tempted to dismiss it. Don't. This is how you start turning down the volume in your head. Every night for 7 nights, write 5 lines. Each line starts the same way. Tomorrow I will do one thing to feel lighter. Then you fill in the blank with something small and real. Call the pharmacy. Schedule the appointment. Take a 10-minute walk. Pay the bill I've been avoiding. Text my sister. The goal is not to fix your life. The goal is to stop going to bed with a pile of unnamed fears. If you do this, you may not sleep 8 perfect hours right away. Aging is hard and sometimes sleep is messy. But you will start giving your mind a place to set the weight down. And that is how you get your footing back. And once your head quiets down a little, you're going to notice something else. You're going to hear your body loud and clear, and at our age, your body doesn't lie about what it can handle. That's what we're talking about next, because motivation is unreliable. But energy tells the truth every single time. Part 4. Your body is the real clock. Live by energy, not motivation. At our age, motivation is unreliable. Energy is the truth. If you've noticed, you can do the same thing you used to do, and it costs you twice as much the next day. You're not imagining it. And you're not weak. This is the grief nobody talks about. You wake up and you still feel like you. But your body has a different schedule now. You can't bully it the way you did at 45. You can't shame it into cooperating. If you try, it will collect its payment later, usually at the worst time. The trap is simple. You keep the old pace because slowing down feels like admitting defeat. So you stack errands back to back. You drive all over town. You do the Medicare appointment, then the pharmacy, then the grocery store. Then you decide today is also the day to climb up and mess with something. Around the house, you tell yourself you're being productive. But what you're really doing is daring your body to punish you. And it will. You crash, you get short-tempered. You snap at your spouse or your daughter on the phone. Not because they deserve it, but because you're drained and embarrassed. You cancel plans you actually wanted because you have nothing left in the tank. You check your blood pressure and it's higher than it should be. And now you're worried again, which drains you even more. That's the cycle. I used to believe pushing through proved strength. That was the lie. I thought if I kept moving, kept proving I could still do it, then I didn't have to feel old. I told myself, rest is for people who gave up. Like resting was a moral failure. Then I paid for it. I had a stretch where I kept overdoing it doctor visit in the morning, errands after, and a quick home project in the afternoon. By evening, I was worn down to a bad version of myself. I got sharp with the person I love most, and later I felt ashamed. Not just tired. The next day I was useless, and the day after that I was still recovering. All that productivity bought me was 2 days of misery. Now I know the truth. Strength at 70 isn't pushing through. Strength is pacing. It's knowing what drains you, planning around it, and protecting the part of you that lets you stay independent. I've watched this play out with a buddy of mine, Frank, 74. He went to a doctor appointment, the kind where you leave with more questions than answers. He didn't like how it made him feel. He felt weak, and instead of accepting that feeling, he tried to outwork it. So he did what a lot of us do. He left the appointment and drove straight to the store. Then he went to the pharmacy to pick up refills. Then he decided he might as well tackle that heavy chore at home because I'm already out. By night, he was wiped out. And the next morning, his body reminded him who's in charge. Frank wasn't lazy. He wasn't careless. He was proud. He was trying to prove to himself that he still had it. That's the danger. Pride doesn't just hurt your ego, it can wreck your week. So let me reframe this for you in a way that doesn't feel like quitting. I'm not slowing down because I'm giving up. I'm slowing down so I can stay in my own home and keep my dignity. I'm slowing down so I don't end up relying on other people sooner than I have. 2. That is not weakness. That is strategy. Here's the system I use. And it's simple enough to remember even when you're tired. I call it the 2-speed day. Some parts of your day are speed A and some parts are speed B. Speed A is anything that costs you more than you think it will. Speed B is the light stuff, the recovery stuff, the maintenance stuff. Speed A is a doctor appointment, especially if you're dealing with Medicare paperwork or test results. Speed A is a grocery run when the store is crowded and your patience gets tested. Speed A is the pharmacy line, the copays, and the "do I really need this refill right now" conversation in your head. Speed A is calling the insurance company, waiting on hold, and trying not to lose your temper. Those things drain you, even if you're sitting down. Speed B is laundry. Speed B is meal prep that doesn't require you to stand there for an hour. Speed B is making a couple phone calls you don't dread. Speed B is cleaning the kitchen at a steady pace, not racing like you're being timed. Speed B is sitting at the table to do paperwork instead of standing at the counter and draining your legs for no reason. The goal is not to fill every minute. The goal is to stop treating the whole day like it has to be Speed A. If you do one Speed A task, the rest of the day needs to be mostly Speed B. That's how you end the day with enough left to be kind. Now add 2 micro-recovery habits that don't feel like exercise, because I know how seniors hear that word. After meals, take a 10 to 15-minute walk. Not 5 miles, not a fitness program, just a walk that helps your body settle. During TV commercials, stand up and stretch for 5 minutes. Not to get flexible like a teenager, but to keep your joints from locking up and your mood from sinking. And here's one more rule that will save you a lot of misery. Don't stack heavy tasks. Don't do the doctor visit, the grocery store, and a big home project on the same day. Don't do a 20-mile round trip for an appointment and then act surprised when you're wiped out. Waiting rooms, driving, and decision-making are exhausting at our age, even if nobody sees it. If you need a simple way to prove this to yourself, do this for 3 days. Morning, noon, and night. Rate your energy from 1 to 10. Just a number. No drama, no analysis, just a number. At the end of 3 days, look for one pattern. Maybe you're a 6 in the morning and a 3 by mid-afternoon. Maybe you're slow until noon and then you perk up. Then make one swap. Move one task to a time when your energy is higher. If phone calls to the doctor's office drain you, don't do them at 4 p.m. when you're already cooked. Do them at 10 a.m. when you still have patience. This is how you build a life you can actually live. Not by pretending you're the same person you were at 45, but by respecting the body you have now. When you respect your rhythm, you stop crashing, you stop snapping, and you stop feeling ashamed of limits you didn't choose. And once your mind is quieter and your body's rhythm is respected, another pain tends to show up. It's the one people hide the most, the loneliness and the loss of role after retirement. That's next, because no amount of pacing fixes the ache of feeling unnecessary. Part 5. Senior loneliness. Not a lack of people, but a lack of role. The hardest part of retirement isn't boredom. It's realizing nobody needs you to be there. That hits people who did everything right, worked hard, raised families, paid taxes, and expected the quiet years to feel earned. I used to think I was lonely because I didn't have enough people. I was wrong. What I really lost was my role. I lost the daily proof that I mattered to someone besides the electric company and the pharmacy. Loneliness in your 60s and 70s has a specific sound. Your phone stays quiet longer than it used to. Conversations feel one-sided, like you're the only one asking questions. You stop offering ideas because you assume nobody wants to hear them. And after a while, you start acting like you don't have any ideas at all. A lot of seniors don't say, "I feel lonely." They say, "I don't want to bother anyone." That's not politeness, that's fear. It's the fear of being the older person who needs something. The fear of being pitied, the fear of being handled. Carol is 69 lives out in the suburbs. She has kids, she has grandkids, and she has a clean house. None of that stops her from feeling invisible. She watches her phone the way some people watch the weather, hoping for a sign that today is going to be different. Carol tells herself, the kids are busy, and they are. Work, school, sports, schedules, life. But after you repeat, they're busy for long enough, it turns into a belief that you are optional. Then you stop reaching out because you don't want to be the reason they sigh. And the silence becomes a habit you can't break without feeling awkward. Here's the hidden driver most people miss. It's not just loneliness, it's lost usefulness. For 40 years you were needed. You were the person who showed up, fixed problems, paid bills, drove somebody somewhere, made decisions. Then retirement comes, and the world keeps spinning without requesting your opinion. That loss messes with your self-respect. You start thinking, if I reach out first, I look needy. You start thinking, if I tell the truth, I'll sound pathetic. That's how seniors end up fine on the outside and starving on the inside. Let me own my mistake, because pride is expensive. I used to believe self-respect meant not needing anyone. That was the lie. I told myself, I'm independent. I'll handle it. Like connection was a weakness, and asking for a little time was a burden. Then I lost days, real days. Not one bad afternoon. Whole stretches where I didn't talk to anyone except the cashier and the pharmacist. I'd feel that hollow feeling, and instead of doing something about it, I'd double down and say, I'm fine. That's how you become invisible on purpose. And it doesn't feel brave when you're the only one sitting in it. Now I know the truth. Self-respect means you're allowed to reach out in a clean way. Not begging, not guilt-tripping, not nobody ever calls me. Just reaching out like a normal human being who still belongs on the map. Here's the turning point I want you to take seriously. Connection is dignity, not dependency. You're not asking to be rescued. You're refusing to disappear. When you reach out with a steady, respectful message, you're not making yourself smaller. You're making yourself present. The first tool is small contact. Often, seniors get this backward. They wait for the perfect long phone call, and since it never happens, they get nothing. Small contact is one short message with a purpose, something the other person can receive without pressure. If you want examples that don't sound needy, here you go. You can text your son, "Hey, I'm at the store, need anything for the week." You can text your daughter, "No rush, but I'd love a quick call sometime this weekend." 10 minutes is enough. You can text a friend, "I'm going to the diner on Main Street Tuesday morning. Want to meet me for coffee? My treat is not required." Those are clean messages. They don't blame, they don't beg, and they give the other person an easy way to say yes. The second tool is low-cost reasons to meet. A lot of seniors avoid connection because they think connection costs $40 and a long drive, it doesn't have to. If gas is expensive and you don't like driving at night, you choose daytime. Close to home and cheap. A library program costs nothing and nobody expects you to perform. A community center class is often low cost, and you can leave whenever you want. A church potluck doesn't require you to be the life of the party. You can show up, say hello, and help clean up. A walking group lets you talk without staring at each other across a table, which is easier if your hearing isn't what it used to be. The third tool is a standing date that's not perfect. Seniors sabotage themselves by waiting until everything is clean. The house looks right, the food is impressive, and they feel ready. That day doesn't come. If you want a real life, you build a simple rhythm. It can be Sunday lunch every other week, and it does not have to be fancy. It can be a store-bought rotisserie chicken, a bag of salad, and paper plates if that's what makes it doable. The point is not the menu. The point is consistency. Because consistency is what turns we should get together into. I'll see you. Now let me say the part that stings, because it's where seniors get trapped. Stop waiting to be chosen. Adult kids love you, but their lives are loud. Friends get distracted. Neighbors keep to themselves. If you sit back and wait for people to initiate forever, you will be waiting a long time, and you'll tell yourself a story that makes you bitter. Initiating does not mean chasing. It means you offer a simple option that respects everyone's life, including yours. You don't say, "Why don't you ever call?" You say, "I'm free Wednesday around 2:00 if you want to catch up for a few minutes." You don't say, "Nobody cares." You say, "I miss you, and I'd like to see you." That's not weakness. That's a grown adult speaking clearly. Here's your 10-minute plan, and you can do it today without spending a dime. Take a piece of paper and write 3 names, not 10, not 20, 3. Then write 1 opening line for each person, short and clean. Like the examples I just gave you. Make it realistic for your life. If you don't drive at night, don't offer a night plan. If money is tight, don't suggest an expensive outing. If you're tired in the afternoons, offer mornings. The goal is not a big social comeback. The goal is 1 small reconnection that reminds you that you still have a place in the world. And I'm going to be honest about the next barrier, because it's real. Even when you want connection, the fear of spending can make you retreat again. You'll start thinking, "I can't afford to go out." And you'll choose isolation because it feels safer. That's what we're talking about next money, not as a spreadsheet, but as the thing that quietly decides how much life you let yourself have. Part 6. Slow living with money. Not tightening the noose, but learning to breathe. Have you ever put the good meat back because you were scared of the total? Not. Because you didn't want it, but because your throat tightened and you thought, what if something else hits this month? That moment isn't about steak. It's about fear. I used to look at my Social Security deposit and feel relief for about 5 minutes. Then the fear came right back. The money would land, and my brain would immediately start assigning it to bills like it was already gone. Medicare premiums, utilities, property taxes, prescriptions, car insurance. By the time I was done doing the math, I felt broke even when I wasn't technically broke. That's the part nobody explains. Retirement turns money into a mental weather report. If it looks cloudy, you cancel life. You stop going out, stop seeing people, stop replacing what's broken, and you call it being responsible. But what you're really doing is living braced for impact. I know a guy named James, 73. He stands in the grocery aisle and he looks calm, but his mind is sweating. He'll put a few items in the cart, then pull one back out, then another, because he can't predict the total anymore. Prices moved, his habits didn't, and that uncertainty makes him feel foolish, like he should have planned better. James isn't reckless. He's not spending on luxury. He's paying for normal life, and normal life got more expensive. And when you're on a fixed income, more expensive doesn't just mean annoying. It means threatening. Here's my mistake, because I made it, and it cost me more than dollars. I used to think being disciplined meant cutting all joy. That was the lie. I told myself, no extras. Like joy was a weakness, and a coffee with a friend was irresponsible. Then the pain showed up in a place I didn't expect. I got lonely and resentful. I kept my spending low, but my mood got ugly. I started feeling like life was just bills and doctors and waiting, and that's a dangerous place for a human being to live. Now I know the truth. The goal isn't to punish yourself into safety. The goal is breathing room and stability. This isn't about being cheap. It's about building a system that lets you sleep and keeps your life from shrinking down to nothing. So let's talk about slow living with money the way it really is. It starts with reality, not optimism. You don't need a spreadsheet, and you don't need a lecture. You need a simple way to see your month clearly. The first step is fixed costs first. That means you write down the basics that don't care how you feel. Housing, utilities, Medicare premiums, or your Medicare Advantage costs. Prescription refills, property taxes, car insurance, gas, and the kind of home maintenance that always shows up sooner than you want. When you put those on paper, you stop guessing. And guessing is what makes your brain panic. I'm not asking for perfect numbers. Round them. If your prescriptions usually run about $120 a month at the pharmacy, write $120. If your utilities average $250, write $250. If your property taxes are due quarterly, break it down into a monthly amount so it stops ambushing you later. The purpose of this list is simple. When the fear hits, you can point to facts. You can say, this is what has to be covered. And you stop treating every single purchase like a life or death decision. Facts don't solve everything, but they reduce the fog. And fog is where bad choices live. The second step is what I call one cut, one keep, not starvation budgeting, not never enjoy anything. One cut is something that doesn't actually support your life. And one keep is something that keeps you human. One cut might be a subscription you forgot you had $12 a month here, $15 a month there. It might be a convenience fee you keep paying because you never changed a habit. It might be a store you shop at out of routine, even though a different place would save you $20 a week. One keep is not a splurge, it's a lifeline. It could be a simple breakfast at the diner on Main Street once a week, capped at $15. It could be a small hobby supply, $8 for yarn or paint or a puzzle book, something that gives your hands and your mind a job. It could be taking your grandkid for ice cream once a month, not to show off, but to create a memory while you still can. When you do one cut and one keep together, something important happens. You stop feeling like the only way to be responsible is to be miserable. Misery makes you rebel later, and that's how people binge spend out of frustration. Slow living with money is about steady choices, not emotional whiplash. The third step is the Joy Fund, and I want you to hear me before you dismiss it. This is not irresponsible spending. This is a tiny protected amount you are allowed to use without guilt. Because guilt drains you, and drained people make bad choices. Pick a number you can actually handle, $10 to $25 a week. If $10 is what you can do $10. Put it in a separate envelope or a separate spot in your mind, and treat it like it has a job. Its job is to keep your life from becoming nothing but survival. The Joy Fund isn't for random shopping. It's for things that reduce loneliness and keep you steady. It's gas money for a short drive to meet a friend. It's a small meal you don't have to cook when you're exhausted. It's a $3 coffee that gets you out of the house and around people. It's not about buying happiness, it's about preventing isolation. Now let's stop the surprise bleed. Because seniors get hit by unexpected expenses that aren't actually unexpected, they're just not written down. Car tags, quarterly taxes, annual memberships, a dentist visit, a home repair you've been delaying. You don't need a budget app to handle this. You need one simple habit. Write down 3 upcoming expenses that tend to ambush you, and put them where you'll see them. When you name them ahead of time, they stop feeling like proof you're failing, and start feeling like normal life management. This is how you help James, too. When he's in that grocery aisle, he's not just buying food. He's fighting uncertainty. If he knows his fixed costs are covered, if he knows he has a small Joy Fund set aside, He doesn't have to treat the checkout total like a moral judgment. He can make a clean decision, this is what I can do this week. And then he can go home without shame. Here's your 30-minute action for today, and it is simple on purpose. Choose a Joy Fund number, $10, $15, $20, whatever is real for you, and set it aside for this week. Then write 5 low-cost ways you could use it that would actually improve your peace or your connection. Your 5 ideas should be specific. Coffee at the diner with Carol, gas for a 10-mile drive to the library, a rotisserie chicken to make Sunday lunch easy, a puzzle book instead of scrolling headlines, a small bouquet for the table because I'm tired of living like I'm in waiting mode. If you can write 5, you can choose 1, and if you can choose 1, you can start breathing again. And once money fear is contained, not magically gone, the next question shows up fast. What are you living for each week? Beyond just getting by, because a stable budget is important. But it is not a reason to wake up. That's where we're going next, and it won't require big money. Just consistency. Part 7. Purpose doesn't have to be big, it just has to be real. And repeated weekly. When you retire, the paycheck isn't the only thing you lose. You lose the reason you mattered at 8:00 a.m. That's the part that sneaks up on people, because nobody puts it in the brochure. A lot of seniors aren't hurting because they lack hobbies. They're hurting because they lost a reason to get up that feels solid, useful, and connected to something outside their own head. When that disappears, you don't just get bored, you start drifting. Drifting looks harmless at first. You snack because it gives the day a little shape. You scroll because it fills silence. You nap at odd hours, then you can't sleep at night, so you watch more TV. And you call it normal retirement. After a while, you're not living, you're waiting. I made this mistake. I kept waiting for purpose to show up. That was the lie I believed. I thought one day I'd wake up and feel inspired, like I'd found my passion, and everything would click. Then I lost time. Weeks slid by with nothing to mark them. I stopped calling people because I didn't have much to say. Besides, same old. I started feeling smaller in my own life, like I was taking up space instead of taking part. That's a dangerous feeling for a human being. Now I know the truth. Purpose isn't a project. It's a weekly rhythm that keeps you from disappearing. It's not something you discover like a treasure. It's something you build like a routine, small, honest, and repeated. And I want to make this practical for seniors on a fixed income, with real limitations, because that's most of us. You might have Medicare appointments that eat a day. You might not drive at night. You might be careful with gas because prices keep creeping. You might have a Social Security check that covers the basics and not much. Else? Purpose has to fit inside real life, or it's just another idea that makes you feel guilty. So here's the system that worked for me, and I've watched it work for other retirees too. 3 pillars: care, share, and build. Not as a slogan, as a way to give your week a backbone. Care means you care for a person, a place, or a small responsibility. It does not have to cost money. It can be checking on a neighbor once a week. Just a quick call. You doing okay? It can be calling a sibling every Sunday afternoon, even if it's 10 minutes. It can be keeping one corner of your home in order the kitchen table, the entryway, one drawer, because when your space is cared for, your mind calms down. Care can also be tending one plant, even if it's a cheap one from the grocery store. That's under $10. And it gives you a daily reason to notice something besides bills and news. You water it, you watch it, you keep it alive. That sounds small, but small is what holds you up when you're tired. Share means you share what you already know. Seniors forget how much value they carry because nobody asks anymore. That doesn't mean you have nothing. It means you have to place it where it can be used. Share can be teaching a grandkid one simple meal. Not a feast, one meal. Scrambled eggs done right, a grilled cheese that doesn't burn. How to make a pot of chili that lasts? It can be helping a neighbor with one small fix if you're able tightening a loose hinge, showing them how you organized your paperwork, telling them which questions to ask when the insurance company keeps passing them around. If you need a low-cost way to share without putting your health at risk, volunteer one morning a month at the community center or through your church. Bulletin, you're not trying to be a hero. You're showing up and being useful in a small, steady way. And if leaving the house is hard, share can also be writing down what you learned one page for your kids or grandkids. Not a memoir, a page. Here's what I wish I knew about money. Here's what I learned about marriage. That costs $0, and it turns your life into something that still gives. Build means you build something finishable. Seniors get stuck because they think purpose has to be a big dream. It doesn't. Purpose can be finishing one piece of unfinished business a week. Something you can point to and say, I did that. Build can be fixing the loose cabinet hinge that's been annoying you for a year. It can be sorting one box for downsizing, not the whole garage. One box. It can be finally organizing the weekly pill organizer on the same day each week, because that's also building a stable life. It can be completing one small craft, one puzzle, one repair, one donation pile. Finishable is the key, because finishing builds trust with yourself. This is how you stop drifting. Care gives your heart a place to land. Share gives your experience a purpose. Build gives you proof that you still move the world, even in small ways. And notice how this ties back to everything we talked about. In Chapter 3, we quieted the mental noise so the night audit doesn't eat you alive. Care helps with that too, because a cared-for life is calmer. In Chapter 4, we stopped pretending motivation runs the show and started listening to energy. These pillars respect energy because they're adjustable. You can care in a small way on a low-energy day. You can share with a text or a phone call when your legs don't want to. Cooperate. You can build for 20 minutes instead of 2 hours. In Chapter 5, we talked about loneliness and the loss of role. Care and share put you back in a role without making you beg for one. You become the person who checks in, the person who teaches, the person who shows up. In Chapter 6, we talked about money and breathing. This system is designed to be cheap. A lot of it is $0. Some of it is under 10. None of it requires you to pretend you're wealthy, young, or full of energy. Here's what I don't want you to do. Don't wait for the right mood. Don't wait until your health is perfect. Don't wait until your 401k looks better or gas prices drop. Or your schedule clears. That day doesn't come. Purpose is built while life is still messy. So I'm going to give you a one-page plan for the next 7 days. Not a self-improvement program, just enough structure to keep you steady. Pick one slow point daily, 10 to 15 minutes. That could be a short walk after a meal, a quiet coffee without the TV, or writing your worry parking lot note before bed. The goal is one daily pause that tells your nervous system, we are not being chased. Pick one small connection this week. 1. A diner coffee, a library event, a phone call you actually make, a church potluck you show up to. Keep it low pressure. Keep it within your budget. Keep it within your driving comfort. The goal is to be seen by another human being on purpose. Pick one unfinished task to complete this week. One hinge, one box, one call, one small repair. One paperwork step you've avoided. The goal is to finish something and feel your self-respect come back online. If you do those 3 things for 7 days, you'll have something retirees are desperate for and rarely build momentum. Not hype. Momentum. A week that has shape. A life that feels like it belongs to you again. Here's my ask, and it's simple. Pick one tiny action you'll do for the next 7 days and put it in the comments. Not 10 actions. 1. Consistency beats perfection, especially at our age. And if you're thinking, that's too small to matter, that's exactly why it works, because small is what you can repeat. And repeat is what keeps you from disappearing.